What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Espresso and welcome back to another video here today on the channel. Recently we talked about Call of Duty Roman Wars, one of the canceled games in the Call of Duty franchise, and from that I asked you guys if you would be interested in seeing a video on 5 canceled COD games, and the result was an overwhelming yes to that question. So today we're going to be talking about 5 canceled Call of Duty titles. Now before we get too far into it, if at any point in time you do enjoy what you hear here of this information, drop a like down below. It really does help the video out. But firstly, let's talk about Call of Duty Roman Wars. For those of you guys that did not see the video detailing all this kind of stuff, I'll run over it here briefly for the first of our 5 on the list of canceled COD games. But Call of Duty Roman Wars was a game in development by Vicarious Visions in which it was going to be taking place 2,000 years in the past almost here, back in ancient Rome with the reign of Julius Caesar, and it would follow his 10th Legion, the equivalent back then of the Special Operating Forces that we'd see in today's world. So they would follow the 10th Legion. It would take place around the Battle of Alesia, and really it would feature a lot of hand-to-hand combat, sword combat, and it would jump around from place to place in which you could play from the low-level grunts in the army all the way up to Julius Caesar himself would be a playable character. Now, there were a few couple things that were interesting here. What was described as the air quote tanks of the levels would be elephants in which you could ride in them, you could duck below arrow fire and all that kind of stuff, and if you came across an unsuspecting enemy, you could use the elephant to trample them. Now, one of the big things about this was there was actually 2 different ways you could play this, one of which being in first person, like we're used to with Call of Duty, but also it was a toggleable option to go into third person. So that would open up a lot of brand new avenues for the Call of Duty franchise, ones that may have worked out well. I guess we'll never know. Number 2 on the list though comes in with Call of Duty Vietnam. Initially codenamed as Fog of War, this was an installment into the Call of Duty franchise and was in development by Sledgehammer Games. A lot of you guys actually may have heard of this. It came to light in the public eye with an interview with Glenn Schofield last year during the hype of Advanced Warfare's release, but it was set to take place in the 1960s and the 1970s, not only in Vietnam, but also in the surrounding regions of Cambodia and Laos, essentially focusing on the Vietnam War as a whole and its effect on the region, not just the 2 opposing sides that we would see here in a standard conflict. We don't know if this was a game that was going to be based strictly on fact, or rather it would warp that history in which all other past tense Call of Duty titles have done, in which the base game is built upon factual evidence and then transferred to fit the realistic fiction, or rather historical fiction category, but regardless, the era of the time was known. What was different about Vietnam though was that this title was initially developed to be that of a third-person shooter. You could say it was similar to that of Roman Wars in a sense, but unlike Roman Wars, it was only half the story because Roman Wars offered the ability to toggle between first and third-person shooters. Vietnam was strictly third-person. As of 8 months in development, there was about 15 minutes playable, which may not seem like a whole lot, but from scratch and as a side project essentially for Sledgehammer, that's not too bad of progress. Activision then later offered Sledgehammer the chance to help Infinity Ward with the development of Modern Warfare 3, which is what initially sent the title on its way to the scrapyard. As of January of 2011, it was announced that the game would be canceled due to a lack of time for development, at which point Modern Warfare 3 had consumed the daily tasks of those employed by Sledgehammer. Now the upside is that this project, though labeled as canceled, still has some place in the hearts of the Sledgehammer team. Glenn Schofield stated that if Sledgehammer were to ever be asked to develop a third-person Call of Duty title, they would pick right back up with Call of Duty Vietnam. Number 3 on the list here today is going to go to Call of Duty Devil's Brigade. In 2007, Underground Development worked on their own project in hopes of adding it into the Call of Duty universe. At the time, World War II was the only setting the franchise knew, and Jason Vandenberg and his team set out to bring a new vision to that of the series. This time, a third-person Call of Duty title. Seems like a trend, doesn't it? Set in World War II and focusing primarily on Italy, the game was almost like that of a strategy shooter, not necessarily what it is today in the aim, shoot, and kill department. Instead, the player could control the way the game was played by accessing the D-pad to give direct orders to the player's squad. The commands were either assault, barrage, hold the line, or form up. There were some variables in which other immediate actions could be done, such as a stealth kill or something similar, falling in line with that of the assault category of directives. The game was extremely far from completion before it was scrapped, but while that doesn't give us much to go on, it does offer some insight though into the weaponry that was inside of the game. Such weapons included the AK-47, the Thompson, whose model was actually copied and pasted from Call of Duty 2, as well as the MP40. Other assets and icons indicated that there were going to be flashbangs as well as other M76 grenades. However, other than that, not much else is known about the game. Ultimately, it did not make it much further than that of the stages that it was in, the very early development stages, and with only a total of 3 weapons coded, you can see just how quickly it was scrapped. Number 4 belongs to Call of Duty Combined Forces. Following the release of Call of Duty Finest Hour, Spark Unlimited was set to start working on their next title, which was to follow directly to that of Finest Hour, the studio's previous piece of work. However, despite sketching up some early concept storyboards and work for it, Activision rejected the idea for a couple of reasons. Firstly, the budget wasn't there for that of the content that they had looked to deliver. Combined Forces was estimated to take up $10.5 million in production, to which that was a steep cost back then before the brand really took off. On top of that, Spark's first title in the franchise, once again that being Finest Hour, was to only take up $2 million in production. However, because of extreme cost overflows on the side of Spark, as well as a lawsuit that they found themselves involved with dealing with Electronic Arts back in 2003, Activision had to front nearly $8 million for the production and the legal costs of Finest Hour. With all that said, it seemed like too much of a liability, as well as the pitch of the storyboards didn't seem too great, and they described it as more of an expansion pack rather than that of a whole new game, which is what the publisher ultimately was looking for. It was canceled sometime in 2003. Now finally, number 5 of 5 here today is Call of Duty Tactics. The year for this title is relatively unknown, and truthfully, there's not much known in the way of tactics, other than it was developed by Vicarious Visions once again, as well that it was a wholly different experience to that of the Call of Duty franchise. Similar to that of Devil's Brigade, the game was slated to be a tactical shooter, more so leaning to that of commands, but also teetering on that of the third-person arcade style, and if you want a more relative example, almost like Dead Ops Arcade in Black Ops 1 as well as Black Ops 3. Using commands, you'd be able to control your soldiers and enact them throughout multiple missions. In-game features are relatively unknown, as the only surfaced footage of the game was soldiers throwing grenades as well as one shooting a bazooka. How many levels, the primary setting and storyline, if any, and many other pieces of information remain a mystery. The game was canceled once again sometime in the mid to late 2000s. So with all that said, I think that's going to wrap up this video. That has been 5 canceled Call of Duty titles. You guys asked for it. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. Really had a lot of fun investigating these a little bit more and making a video here for you guys on this. So with that said, if you did like it, make sure you drop a like down below. It really does help the video out and really shows me that you guys did enjoy it. But I'd love to hear your thoughts down there in the comment section down below. Of these 5, which do you think is the most intriguing? Which would you like to see the most, if any of these? Which of them would you have liked to see make it to the way of the Call of Duty franchise? And if they did, do you think that they would be able to survive? Do you think they would stand up to the Call of Duty name? Love to hear your thoughts down there in the comment section down below. But subscribe if you guys are new. We're on that road to 50,000 subscribers, so every little bit does help and is, of course, greatly appreciated. So one final thing, if you guys want to follow me over on Twitter, that is the best place to get connected with me and stay up to date, all that good stuff. So if you guys are interested in that, the link is down there in the description below if you want to follow me. But that being said, all of that, thank you dudes so much for watching. Mine's been Nikolai Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.